I've always been jealous of that staghorn sitting over there. I've always been jealous that I wanted to be the one, I wanted to join the club. I wanted to put a mounted fern on my wall. Got my cork bark down there waiting, you know, just ready to go whenever I've got something. And then it hit me. It was the light bulb moment. I don't even know why I hadn't considered it. I don't know why I was so stuck on a staghorn fern, because you know what? I've got another fern waiting right over there for us, waiting to be mounted. It's been practically begging me to be mounted this entire time. It's been waving its little ferny hands around saying, look, I could be your mount. I'm even a little bit smaller than the magnificent staghorn back in the big clay tub back there. Should I stop hyping it up and show you which plant we're gonna use? Well, this, my friends, is an Elkhorn Fern. And this is, you know, I got this, I don't even remember when I got this. I got this a while back. I potted this thing up. I think it was actually one of my first ferns. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a little different. We're gonna finally get something on the wall. We're gonna finally join the club of the mounted fern plant lovers. Is that what they call themselves? Well, that's what I'm gonna call them. I'm gonna turn the camera off for just a second, because we gotta decide where we're gonna go next. I gotta decide, so there's a couple other tools that I'm gonna need for this project. In fact, let's just pull this whole bin out here. Oops. Number one, we're gonna need some clear fishing line. Number two, I got a picture hook kit. I've just had this, I don't even know where I got this, probably Amazon or something like that. It's got a bunch of different kind of picture hanging things, and we're gonna use this to make the cork bark hang on the wall at some point. And now the other thing that we're gonna need is a little further down in here. I guess I could have pre-prepared a little earlier, but we're gonna need a bunch of this sphagnum moss right here. I think we're gonna need a whole bunch. So this is gonna be our main ingredient, some dry sphagnum moss, some beautiful dry sphagnum moss. I don't feel like looking up where I got it, but I've said it in a previous video. So I'm gonna take this Elkhorn Fern right here, and we're basically just gonna make not a jumbo version, but a little bit larger version of a kokedama. This is sort of an example of what we're going to be doing first with that Elkhorn Fern down there. And that's basically how we're going to end up mounting it on a piece of board like that. So that's my plan anyways. Let me find a spot for you. Let me get you set up. And before we get going, I got to show you this one last little thing, because it's super exciting. Look at the new frond, is that what you call it, coming off of the old fern tree here. It's almost ready to start kind of whipping these little dot things out, and that's what these will eventually, you know, become in here. And then we've got another one. Got another one right down there that's kind of waiting to do the same thing. And then if you look even closer, we've even got one more little fella down in here just waiting to go. But I'm getting too obsessive about the fern tree sprouting all of its new babies. And I've almost forgotten that we're building an Elkhorn. We're mounting an Elkhorn Fern on a piece of cork bark today. And to get started, I'm actually going to depot this thing. Rather than repot, we're going to depot. And I'm going to save some of this soil. So I actually don't want to remove it too much, but I do want to kind of jab my fingers down in here and pull it up like that. Remember, we're going to be making basically a kokedama out of that. So I'm trying, in fact, even at this point, I'm going to start squeezing the roots here. Let's pop that right down in there. Wrap it up around the base. Gonna make my fingers as if I'm holding, you know, something. I just basically need a piece of twine to kind of, you know, seal the top of this thing together so I can free up my dainty little fingers. For the first time ever in one of my videos, I've got to finally stop flapping my lips, because I need to use my mouth for this one. The harder storing. And just sort of tighten that thing up a little bit. You know what I like about making a kokedama like this? Is that it kind of lets you ride that fine balance between, you know, how how rough can I be on the plants? You know, you don't always want to. Part of learning to do all this plant stuff is learning how to get in here and to just kind of, you know, smash around the roots, trim things off, pull things apart, you know, throw things away when they're done, get new things, experience new stuff, watch things grow, watch things die, all of that. And it's just always, it's a nice experience to be able to, you know, work with the roots. You know, you're pulling the whole plant out, you're kind of flopping it all over the place. And it's just a nice, it's a nice little, I don't know, what do you want to call it? A nice little memory. It's a nice little, I got to actually think of a word to say. It's a nice little experience of being able to sort of balance your, you know, how rough versus how gentle you are with your beautiful plants that you're working with. But for now, we've got a ball, and the next step is to hide this ball with the thing I've been waiting for the most. I'll even do a drum roll. Dry sphagnum moss. I'm not going to go through all the reasons I love dry sphagnum moss, but number one, the reason I'm most looking forward to it in this project is just because I get to wiggle it through my wiggly little fingers. We get to use it to mold around our Elkhorn ball down there. We're going to cover up all this ugly stuff. We're going to make it look awesome. We're going to make something look organic. This is going to provide the roots with the perfect environment to grow and thrive and basically just hang on to that cork bark wood that we're going to use in the end of this video. And not to mention, I've got to say it, the person that really inspired me to with the kokedama specifically, the video that I first watched, the video that I actually found that got me into this person's channel. So you should check him out. He's called Benji Plant on YouTube. Benji, B-E-N-J-I Plant. And you know, he's just a chill plant person from California, I think. That's always doing neat things in his apartment. And I always sort of thought that we had similar kind of vibes. We're definitely not the same person. I'm a little bit more high energy and a little bit more like anxious and ready to go. But Benji Plant is he's just it's a cool channel. And that's where I learned to make my first kokedama, and I've been watching old Benji Plant ever since. I've said on this channel before that I grew up in Canada, and it feels like making a snowball. Like making a snowball out of some fresh snow. But in Canada, of course, under the fresh snow is always the nice snow that's been there for forever. Because I think it's like 6 months a year you're living with snow in Canada. But this kind of feels like molding a snowball out of fresh snow, except instead of being like freezing cold on your fingers, you get to have your gloves off and you get to just feel like, I don't know, it just feels like little tiny sponges with little tiny fingers with little tiny sponges on the end of them. Each little finger has a little sponge on the end, and it just kind of feels like you're pressing those against all those precious feeling sensors in our hands. Are you ever thankful for all the feeling sensors in our body? You know, I think that sometimes we can be not thankful for that stuff, especially when we're dealing with pain. And I mean like physical pain and things like that. Do you know what? You know what that teaches you? You know what I always, every time I get some sort of an illness or a cut or something, you know, as dreadful as it is in the beginning, the coming back out of it, the watching your body just magically recover, the watching the cut or whatever it is just sort of heal itself and go away. It's almost a little peek at our infinite nature. At least that's the way that I see it. And the whole point of doing this wrapping is to sort of seal all of this in. So I'm just going in zigzags all over this ball that I just created. And in the end, hopefully it all stays in place. It will. Because I'll wrap it. I'm going to wrap it until it does. Spoiler alert, it will. I bet Benji Plant has an Elkhorn Fern mounted on his wall. All right, let's give our Elkhorn a little shake. Not too hard, but not too gentle, that perfect balance. And if we wanted to end the project right there, we could. I could put this on a tray. I could sit this back on the shelf. This thing would be perfectly fine. I'd mist it. I'd love it. I'd watch it continue to grow and all of that sort of thing. But we're not even going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're going to go one step further with this Elkhorn Fern. Of course we're going to go a step further. I started the video and I promised you. Should we do it with the bigger chunk down that way? Or with the bigger chunk going up? You guess, and in 3 seconds I'll tell you my guess, and we'll see if we're in the same brain. 3, 2, 1. I'm thinking this way, with a bit of a bigger chunk going up, because I think that the Elkhorn Fern is going to kind of, hide that a little bit. It's going to look like just a nice little interesting piece of wood sticking out of the bottom of it. I think it's going to complement our Elkhorn as a perfect background, and we had to make a decision. We have to decide some way of doing it, and that's the decision we made. Were we in the same brain that time, or were we experiencing our individual lives in that moment? Do you ever kind of feel like sometimes that is how it is? Sometimes I feel like, we are really all just kind of dancing energy, bouncing around together, flabbering noises out, if noise is even a thing. And then other times, I think part of the experience is feeling like an individual. Of feeling like almost an outcast sometimes, feeling like nobody understands you, like nobody gets you, and nobody could possibly get what's in your mind. But you know what I think the real secret is? All of our minds are the same as I think the real secret. We're all experiencing the same thing in different ways. And yeah, we are all having individual experiences. But if you really think about it, and if you forget about all of the crap that we do, all of the things like mounting Elkhorn ferns to a piece of cork bark, if you forget about all of that stuff, if you forget about all of the labels, parents, grandparents, children, if you forget all about the what's right and what's wrong, and you just kind of look deep, if you just lift up the veil a little bit, look under the covers, and see that game that's kind of being played on top of all of us, you're going to think I'm going to say something negative about the game that's being played on top of us, about that veil, about that cover over our eyes, about the masks that we all wear. But I'm not going to say anything bad about that, because that's the most beautiful part. That's the beautiful part about this world. I've learned that. That's what I've learned growing up, is that we're all individuals, but we're all the same thing. And we're all contributing to each other. And let that one soak into your old noggin for a minute. I think we're going to mount it right about here. What do you think? So we're going to lay that down. We're going to go in here and we're going to give this thing a little bit of a smoosh flat. Be extra smooshy on that one. And the reason we did that is so I could take our board and, we could lay it on there a little bit nicer. Well, I explained it. We're moving the camera again. I'm coming back in for a close-up. I guess this is the real action of the video. What am I thinking, putting you so far away? I mean, this is what the video is all about. It's mounting an Elkhorn Fern to a piece of cork bark. And this is the part where I'm going to use this fishing line. And the reason for that, I could have used the twine that we used to make the little kokedama or whatever, but I don't want to have twine necessarily wrapping all the way around this cork bark. I think how I'm going to start is I'm going to anchor everything into here. And for that, you probably can't even see this clear fishing string, but I've basically got a piece of string wrapped around here, and I'm just going to create a knot. I'm going to pull it nice and tight, and that's going to give us something to work with, an anchor to hold on to. And now, because we have this thing anchored onto our board, I mean, obviously, it's not quite done yet, but we're just going to do what we did before, and we're going to sort of liberally wrap the whole thing in fishing line. Don't forget, the back of this board, it don't matter. I'm never quite sure how to seal these things off in the end. I guess I got to go watch Benji Plant's Kokedama video again. But what I do is I just sort of wrap it around through the other lines that I've already got kind of around here, creating a bunch of knots along the way. And yeah, hopefully in the end that ends up doing something. Give her a little shake in case we have an earthquake here in North Carolina. Never experienced one before, but you know, it's never too late. I think that's perfect. Now, you know, it's not the most perfect job in the world either. You can still see the fishing line on the side there. You can see a little bit of fishing line and stuff all up on there. But we still do have one more step. And although this thing's not going to be perfect, because to be honest with you, that's out of the viewing angle, and it doesn't really matter because no one's ever going to come up and actually notice this thing. But we can still take our wonderfully, the VIP of this project, the VIP of almost every project, I should say, our sphagnum moss, and we can even go through and add a few more little details. We can come in here and stuff some of this. In fact, take your time with this part. This is the fun part of doing everything. It's the finishing part. It's the making everything look perfect in the end. My family, we run a photography studio. So, you know, we've been printing pictures and that sort of stuff our entire lives. And one of the most appealing part of the process of any sort of picture to me is, you know, besides the actual picture, of course, that's the first step. But the most appealing part of the process is when you finally kind of stick that frame around it and you put it up on the wall and you display it and you put some nice, beautiful lighting on it. And it's all those little finishing steps. And if you think about it, that's exactly what we're doing with this cork bark Elkhorn Fern mount. Is we're going above and beyond to do something a little bit weird just to kind of finish it off perfectly and make this into planty artwork instead of just, you know, whatever else. So is there any real point to doing any of this? Is there any real point to doing anything, I should ask? If you truly consider the answer to that, it's no. You know, why do we do anything? And if you want to ask yourself, well, why do we do anything? Well, then my suggestion is to ask instead, you know, what am I doing what I want to do? And that's what I do. That's what I try and do anyways. I always try and just do what I want to do. But I'm also a pretty curious mind, and I'm always kind of like amped with energy and ready to go. I quit drinking coffee a long time ago, and I thought that when I quit drinking coffee, I was going to have less energy in the mornings, but it turns out I actually now have more energy in the mornings even. And, you know, so I'm the type of person that's always looking for a new project, a new hobby, something to research, something that can sort of consume my life, which is what plants and all that sort of stuff has done for me. I'm always looking for new things like that because I'm always striving for, I'm always wanting to grow and expand and learn something new. And I bet if you're watching this channel, I bet if you resonate with me at all, then you're that type of person too. And why did I even start saying all this? I don't remember. Oh yeah, because I was talking about the finishing touches on this sort of stuff, and then we got into talking about, is anything worth doing? Or is there a reason to do anything? We learned that the answer is no, and that we just do things because we love it. So you would think we're done, but we've got one more step. Again, this is going to be an optional step, or not optional if you want to hang it on the wall. We've got to turn our new little Elkhorn mount upside down. And now we're going to decide how we're actually going to mount this thing onto the wall. So I know exactly which little pieces to go for here. So we're going to take our wire. I'm going to take two of these little hooks right here. You know, all we have to do, it's a pretty easy process. You take one of these little eye screws here. If you don't have any of this stuff, just get yourself a little picture hanging kit at really anywhere. We get one end of that wire in here. We loop it around, and here's the magic. You kind of pull it tight, and then you go around. You just loop it around this wire a few times. And now basically just same thing on the other side. I'm going to drill this little loop in there as tight as I can. We'll give our wire a little snip over here. And then we'll repeat that anchoring process on the front. But the one thing I want to do, I want to show you, you actually want to pull this a little bit tighter than you think. You don't want to have it all loose, you know, hanging up like this. I guess you could do that if you wanted to use some string or something like that. You could make this loose, but I like to kind of make it a little bit tighter so that wherever you place the hook, it's going to pretty much just be in that spot. There's not going to be a whole lot of, you know, wiggle room. So it just kind of helps you mount it on the wall a little bit easier. And again, nobody even sees any of this crazy stuff. Take a look. Let me know what you think about my my detail work on the side. I have managed to sort of cover up all of those strings and almost extended the kokedama ball. And I think this has worked out perfectly. We've extended the kokedama looking ball into the wood, so it sort of has this appearance that it's been, you know, just kind of growing out of this thing like a symbiotic wart of some sort. And that's my way of saying I'm pretty happy with that. I've still got one more side to do. I'm going to do this side without you. I'm going to meet you back at the wall. I'm going to meet you back at the spot where we're going to hang this thing, where we're finally going to enter into the doors of the mounted fern club. I debated not showing you this part at all and just kind of doing the whole hook and everything without you. But you know what? I've been just kind of feeling a little bit more of this is real life energy lately. So that's how I try and present his videos to you in as real time as possible, but also then I try and save you the agony of watching the hours and hours of all the in-between stuff. We're even going to POV the crap out of this Elkhorn mount down here. I'm still not sure if I should grab it by that ball on there. Eventually I'll probably get confident enough, but for right now I think I'm going to take advantage of this little handle that I've created. Place that on there. And then we step back. I keep going further and further back. Initially, I'm sort of thinking it's a little bit high, but you know what? Ain't everything a little bit high? Of course it looks amazing, and oh my God, I was in shock there for a moment. Sorry, I think for one of the first times in my life, I found myself speechless because I finally put my very first mounted fern on the wall. Yes, it's an Elkhorn fern. It's not the standard staghorn fern, but you know what? I'm not your standard old Ryan. So I chose an Elkhorn fern for my first one, and I'm pretty dang happy with it back there. It's the perfect little starter mount for the wall that hopefully will inspire, I don't know, now that I've got the idea, we can start putting plants all over the flippin' walls. Now there's going to be a few keys in taking care of this thing. Number one, an Elkhorn is always going to love a mist. Any fern is always going to love a mist. They come from misty parts of the world. They come from forests and stuff that, you know, in the morning they're used to being full of fog and everything sort of has that shimmering dew on it, or at least that's what I've learned about ferns in general. But the second coolest thing about this mounted fern on the wall is that despite, you know, looking like a nice permanent fixture adorning our plant room wall, we can actually simply come in here anytime we want, pick this guy right up, carry it away, just like it's in a pot still. We can do what I do with my plants. We are going to come into the old shower. Apologize that the shower is a bit of a mess. I'm going to welcome it to its new home by flicking on the old rainy shower. We'll even shut the door so you can enjoy all of the humidity. And just like your potted plants, or more specifically, just like the kokedama we built previously, once in a while I'll go up to this thing, poke my little finger into the moss on the side here. I might give it a little taste just to see if it's still moist. And then all we have to do is pick our mount back up, head on back into the plant room, and put her right back where she belongs. But I'm actually just kidding. I wanted to end the video like that. Things dripping all over the place. In reality, I'm going to leave this in the shower for a while, let it all dry out, let it all stop dripping all over the place. And then 6 hours, sometimes even the day later, that's when I'll come back in and actually hang it back on the plant room wall. So now that we've ended our Elkhorn Mountain video, there's a few more things in the plant room, a few little updates that I want to give you. I've already talked about our fern tree sprouting a new frondy baby, plus all of the other, all the other babes that are coming up behind it. In my previous video, I unboxed some carnivorous plants. Well, before the end of that video, I learned that most carnivorous plants, believe it or not, love to be in full sun. So we moved our pitcher plant, the one that we've had for a while, over to here to a more of a full sun area. And then we've got our other plants over here all waiting. So besides like in full sun, the other thing that I've learned is they're just kind of like wet, boggy plants. Why are they wet, boggy plants? It makes perfect sense because in wet, boggy environments, you get all sorts of little things like mosquitoes and stuff, you know, flying all over the place, finding their way into these carnivorous plants' little jowls. And you know, that's how these things have learned to grow and survive. It almost feels like every time I start to get a little bit worried that I'm running out of projects. At the beginning of this week, I almost felt like, I don't know what to do. I don't know, I can barely scrape together this week. And I don't have no idea what I'm gonna record next week. And just when I was feeling hopeless, just when I felt that I might not get the opportunity to flap my gums around the next week, well, magical things started happening. I surprisingly got my shipment of carnivorous plants back over there. My dad magically drops off a whole bunch of cactuses. I've got ideas, you know, coming from all different directions now. And just when I was feeling desperate for new content, I find it very frustrating to be in between projects. I'm the type of person that I love to have something going on. I at least love to have, you know, a plan of something in my head, something that to be honest with you, something that I can fill all my downtime with. And that time in between projects is always so frustrating. But what I've learned to do is I've learned to just trust, and I've learned to listen at that moment. And just when you think all has failed, just when I thought I wouldn't be able to make another video for you, well, what do you know? You know, magical things start happening. So maybe it's the ferns back there. Maybe it's all of the plants in general. Maybe it's just the energy that's kind of floating around in this plant room. But I've been noticing a lot more of those little magical sparks. And believe me, every time I notice them, I'm gonna share them with you too. Because my goal, besides enjoying all of these plants and everything together, I just want us all to live in a little bit more of a magical world, you know? I want to inspire everyone to see magic all around them. I want to inspire everyone, you know, to not be just like me, but to accept me. You know what I think the real secret is? You know what I think the actual secret is? That is not these plants at all. It's not the plants. It's not the room. It's not whatever's been buried under this ground, you know, waiting under the earth, all the history that lays, you know, where this house lay before. It's none of that stuff. The magic was always there, always there, always there. The magic was always there.